Well, we have an update for you on America's early voting numbers. They have ticked over the 81 million mark, and both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are holding multiple events as they try to convince voters they should be the next US president. The US presidential election, as you know, may take days to be officially called, but analysts could have a good sense of how the race will turn out within hours of polls closing. In fact, as early as 6 p.m. on the East Coast, election watchers will be able to glean important bellwether trends like whether Vice President Kamala Harris made gains with suburban voters and moderate Republicans. But our team of reporters is tracking the latest developments on the ground for you. We have Gaurie Dwivedi joining us live from Washington, D.C. at the moment, and Natasha Israni is with us from Philadelphia, I'm told. Let's go across and get you an update from Washington, D.C. first. Gaurie, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are zigzagging across crucial swing states. Many political watchers are saying this race may actually end up being the closest in US history. But what's the mood in Washington, D.C. where you are?
The race is set to be as close as possible, Parmeshwar, but Washington, D.C. is probably the deepest shade of blue ever. In the last election, there was just 4% votes that Donald Trump polled, because this is an area that goes to the to Democrats completely. So to that extent, I am here, but it's a very inaccurate indicator of what Donald Trump's popularity is outside of Washington, D.C. And he's fairly popular, which is why the race has really gone down to the wire. Having said that, you're right about the fact that they are zigzagging through the country, but particularly focusing on those swing states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Nevada, another very important state where the two candidates are in fact focusing. All eyes now on the voting that takes place tomorrow. I've been speaking to both the camps, and they've been very clear that it's now about ensuring that their registered voters make it to the polling booth. They are now not looking at undecided voters. They are not looking to convince those on the other side. They just want to ensure that their voters come to the polling booths. And it all comes down to a very basic math, Parmeshwar. If more women are able to come to the polling booth, Kamala Harris's chances are that much higher. If it is the men folk who step out of the house to vote more, well, you know which way then the election is headed. So all eyes now on whose voter actually comes out to the polling booth. It's just about 12 hours to go in Washington, D.C.
Well, after months of frantically fanning the swing states to pick up as many undecided voters as possible, it all comes down to Tuesday night. Thanks so much, Gaurie, as always, for joining us with that update from Washington, D.C. We will revert to you for regular updates. Let's also get an update from Philadelphia, where Natasha joins us from. Natasha, Kamala Harris has her own rally in Pittsburgh. Donald Trump has spoken in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and sounded the alarm about voter fraud on the eve of the election.
That's right. This is a big point of the Donald Trump campaign, to talk about voter fraud and to also point out that they have lawyers in place all across the country watching this closely, as well as volunteers. Now, the other side of the aisle, the Democrats say that this is fear-mongering, that so far that there has been no credible evidence of voter fraud on ground, as there wasn't in 2020 either. But this is from the Trump playbook, that they highlight issues or non-issues or half issues and make them bigger. And this has actually been creating a level of uncertainty on the ground. We did speak to Philadelphia election commissioner earlier today, the city commissioner, and she wanted to reassure the voting public that everything was in order, everything wasn't safe. In fact, where I am in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia is Pennsylvania's largest city, in one of the most crucial swing states. There has been heightened protection of voting booths, including the main warehouse in Philadelphia, where the counting will be done. And when the commissioner spoke to us earlier, she again emphasized that things were in place, that when the polls open tomorrow, that there is no fear of anything or of any wrongdoing. But at the same time, we also spoke to the Republican side, and we spoke to a representative of the young Republican group in Philadelphia, and he told us, in fact, he was having meetings with lawyers even after the interview with us, and he emphasized that they have concerns about voter fraud. Now, according to the election officials themselves, voting has been going really well. As you pointed out, early voting numbers are quite high, still not as high as 2020 during the pandemic when there was more mail-in ballots, but they're still quite high. And when those polls open November 5th, for a lot of people, it's really going to be watching really closely. As everybody points out, this is a close race. And it might all just come down to this particular state where I'm standing right now, Pennsylvania. And that's one of the reasons why Kamala Harris has really spent the entire day here holding 5 rallies. This will be her last rally. Behind me on the steps of the Philadelphia Art Museum is where she's going to make a final pitch. And this is really a get the vote out campaign, which is why she's going to have Lady Gaga joining her. There will be Oprah Winfrey. There will be other hip hop stars as well. We spoke to some people who were heading to the rally earlier, and they were very excited that thousands
Natasha,
of people
we will, of course,
flooding
revert
in.
to you for regular updates from Philadelphia. Do conserve your energy because we need you for the next 40 hours, giving us ground updates from right there. Thanks so much, as always, for joining us. Polling aggregators on Monday had the gap between Trump and Harris at as little as 0.1%. But, well, the winner-takes-all electoral college system in the US means the presidency will be decided by the way the 7 so-called swing states fall, and the race is much closer there, as Gaurie and Natasha are reporting. But in terms of election mechanics, as you know, Americans do not directly vote for their president. Instead, they vote to determine the composition of the electoral college, which elects the president. Natasha caught up with her Democratic leader, Will Gross. Here's what he had to say about the race that's neck and neck.
Pennsylvania is the biggest prize in swing states with 19 electoral college votes, and Philadelphia is its largest city. Now we are joined by Will Gross, who is the leader of the 2nd Democratic ward in Philadelphia. Your candidate, Kamala Harris, has spent the entire last day in Pennsylvania and will culminate it at the concert in Philadelphia. Why is Pennsylvania so important, and why is she here till the very last day?
Pennsylvania incorporates 2 large urban centers, Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, but it also includes many rural areas in the middle of the state and other parts of the state. And I think in a lot of ways it represents the country in a lot of ways, demographics-wise. I think Kamala is here primarily because not just about the electoral votes, that is obviously very important, but the fact that we have people from different parts of the state that have very different experiences in their everyday lives, and the fact that her campaign is truly speaking to everyone in this state, and how her campaign is working to help not just folks that are doing okay, but folks that are in the middle class or working class folks that are farmers, etc. These are folks that are going to benefit from a Harris-Walz election tomorrow, and that's why I think she's here.
You know, Philadelphia has been traditionally blue. At the same time, they have lost registrations amidst Democrats, and we have seen a rise in Republican registration. So what is it, why do you think that is happening?
I think that a lot of this it comes down to messaging. I think it comes down to the reality of which party is fighting for which demographic, which group of people. I think currently we have 2 very different candidates. One who is truly going to help working class and working people and working families, and one that's going to help folks that are in a different class, in a billionaire class. And I think the first represents Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, and the second represents former President Donald Trump.
Well, you've heard from the Democrats, but also hear from the chair of Philadelphia Young Republicans. Here's what they had to say to my colleague Natasha Israni.
Philadelphia, traditionally Democratic city, is seeing young Republicans make Republicans. And to give us a wider perspective on this and the rise of young conservatives here in Philadelphia is Matt Lamorgese. He is the chairman of the Young Republicans of Philadelphia. Matt, thanks for joining us a day before Election Day. How are you feeling?
We feel great. We're very happy. We've seen great numbers across the board. Voter registrations. We've in the last 4 years, to give you an example, we started out with a deficit of about 800,000 voters. That number is now below 300,000. We've seen 1,000 new registrations a week here in Philadelphia, which is significant. And we're seeing a lot of support among young people, too. We're seeing, with young males, it's basically a 50-50 split between Kamala and President Trump. So we're very happy with how all of that's going.
Do you think that split is going to be good enough for him to take the state, given that women do come out in large numbers to vote? And why do we have that split in the first place between men and women, and especially younger men and women?
Well, do I think it'll be enough on its own? No, I don't think it'll be enough. But I think when you take the gains that he's made across the board, he's made huge gains in the African-American community, he's made huge gains in the Hispanic community, and he's making these gains among young people as well. I think when you take it as a whole, that will be enough. As far as women voters, yes, they do turn out. But again, this is a different dynamic. The Democrats count on these voters, particularly in the African-American and Hispanic communities. And we are seeing these gains. Not that he's going to win in those communities, but he's going to do significantly better, I think, than traditionally.